All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bahashem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS who rule well, and also honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect and are out there teaching the word in sincerity and truth. All right, so today I wanted to do a quick show on a conversation that we were having with this guy that comes out from time to time and chops it up with us. He has an Asian look. I'll say that. Reason being because he could be an Israelite. That's why I say it that way. But on face value, you would think by the way he looks and by the way he talks, that you would think he's from Asia, or from either Japan or China, one or the other. But he's a Christian, and every time we talk to him, we get into the Israelite foreigner conversation, and he always, he's a funny guy, but he always he's got a good memory, because he always remembers Adama and I's name, and but anyway, we always get into that conversation of neither Jew nor Greek, because in his mind, I'm a Christian and I'm Asian. Why can't I believe in the Heavenly Father, or why can't I be saved? Right. But what so there's two things. One thing he doesn't understand, that the Gentiles that was being spoken of in the New Testament was predominantly talking about Israelites who went off in one way or another, right? And the second thing is, he doesn't understand that he could possibly be an Israelite, right? So he said something that stuck out to me, and he said when I'm at home and I'm praying, he said, I always ask God, why does he keep sending me to you guys? I'm laughing, but all jokes aside, there's a reason why the Heavenly Father keeps sending you over there, and for one or another, which is either for you to be judged, right, and receive your warning before your judgment, or to possibly come into the fold. And he said that to him it's a waste of time, because we always get into the same conversation and we talk in circles. But he said for some reason God keeps sending him over there, and I felt like, I was like, man, that's heavy. I don't think he realizes how heavy a conversation he's having with us. But anyway, I wanted to get into just briefly, really quick, this thing that I like to keep in mind when this conversation is being had, as far as the Israelite foreigners go, because we always hear things like, what is that Galatians 3:28? Let's go there. I think it's 3:28. Yeah, this is their go-to scripture when this conversation comes up. It says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. There is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach Yahushai. So this is the part right here that they latch on to: Jew nor Greek, right? Now we address this in a couple of different ways, right? But the main way is this, right? It says here that there's neither Jew nor Greek, right? And if you read that, you'd have to think that only Jews or Greeks can be saved, or only Jews and Greeks were being spoken to in this conversation, right? And then they always respond, well, no, there's the Greeks are, that means everybody, everybody other than a Jew, but that's not what it says here. It would say there is neither Jew nor Greek nor Parthian nor Mede, so forth and so on. It would mention all of these nations, because when you go to Acts the 2nd chapter, I'll just go to that real quick. Acts 2. When you go to Acts the 2nd chapter, it didn't have a problem mentioning all these nations where these people came from, right? Parthians, Medes, Elamites, Mesopotamians, Judeans, Phrygians, Pamphylians, right? So it wasn't a problem with all these different nations to be named here. So why not there? Why only were Greeks mentioned, right? Well, let's look it up. Let me see what the word Greek is here. See that? Helen, right? Let's go. I guess we can play it.
Strong's G 1672. Helene.
Right. And it's a Greek either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies, which this is not true, right? And then it says, in a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. The primary reference is to a difference of religion and worship, right? But we know, if you go into the Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary, right, that Helen or Hellenist is a word that was used in particular in the scripture concerning. So let me say this. Let me correct myself here, right? Because look what it says, right? Let me say this. Helen, Grecian or inhabitant of Hellas, by extension, a Greek-speaking person, especially a non-Jew, right? So they harp on it, right? But in regards to the scriptures, right? Because the scriptures don't speak about how the Greeks conquered. Well, okay, so it does. Let me get my bearings here. The Greeks talk about the scriptures talk about how the Greeks conquered all that they conquered, right? By way of Alexander. But namely, when you read, in Maccabees, when you read in the Old Testament, it speaks to what the Greek role was to our people, right? So when you go to the translation of that word Helen or Hellenist, it's talking about, in particular, the Jews who spoke Greek, okay, or practiced Greek customs, okay. So that's important to know that, right? So again, going back to the Zondervan's Compact Dictionary definition, you can go into it if you need to, but it says that they were Jews who made Greek their custom, right? And I'm gonna read some of those things here in the Maccabees in just a second. Okay, so that word Helen or Hellenist is important, right? Let's see. Right, so let's go to real quick. So the point I wanted to make was this, right? You have this part of the whole story that people miss when they're not well versed as the men of the Lord are, right? There's a piece that they miss, because you go from the Old Testament, right, where we understood what our heritage was, right? We were given the laws, statutes, commandments, right? We had prophets, we had judges, kings, so forth and so on, right? And then you get to the New Testament, which there's centuries in between there, from when you read the Old Testament, and then when you get into the time of the Lord Yahushua, and then the 12 apostles and Paul and what they did in those times. There's hundreds of years in between there that's missing, right? Because what gets left out, that whole time of Alexander gets left out. Now it's prophesied about in Daniel's, right? It talks about the Grecian, right? But the story and the details of what happened is kind of left out, right? So you got that whole time of the Greeks, right, under Alexander. Then you got the whole time of the Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemaic Empire, right? All these different Greek times that kind of gets left out if it wasn't for the Apocrypha and First and Second Maccabees, right? And what that does is it sews the story together, because all of a sudden you got these, you know, the whole Old Testament is about Israel, and then all of a sudden all the people think that all these other nations can come into this thing and be delivered and be saved. But if you put that part of the story that's missing in there, then you'll understand why these people were being called Greeks, why these people were being called Hellenists, right? Why it says neither Jew nor Greek, right? Why it says these things, because you're inserting these parts of the story in. All right, so let's go to let me see. I want to start at let's do it like this. Where we at here? I don't know why he does that every once in a while. Alright, let's do this. Let's do this. Actually I got it down here already. I don't know why sometimes that drop down. So this is First Maccabees 1, and I'll start at 30. There's a little bit of reading, so bear with me. I'll try to read through it fast because I didn't want to make this a long show. So this is First Maccabees 1 and 30. It says, no, I'll start at 29. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute into the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a strong hold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it. Insomuch, right, here's the point, that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. So where did they go? Right? Where did they go? Matter of fact, let's do this. Right, so let's do this, right? Paul's missionary map, right? So when you look at this missionary map, right, so of Paul's journeys, let me show you something. I'm just trying to find a good one. This is good enough right here. So check this out, right? So here is Jerusalem, or not Jerusalem, I should say Israel. Here's the land of Israel here, right? But if you notice, right, what do you have here? You got Paul's ministry going outside of there. Syria, right? Let me zoom in a little bit. Right? So you got Syria, right? Antioch, which was a mainstay for the Greeks, right? During the time of the Maccabees, right? You had let me see if some other names that are familiar. Cilicia, Cappadocia, right? When you go to Acts the second chapter, don't you read about Cappadocians, right? You got a whole book called the Galatians, right? What else? Where else is he at? Over here. Lyconia, right? Phrygia, right? Pamphylia. All these are names of the Jews who were devout men out of every nation, right? Let's see. Lydia, right? Let me see. Thessalonica, right? Don't we have a book called the Thessalonians? Berea, don't we read about the Bereans, right? But look where they are though. These are all Greek places, man. Especially here in Macedonia, right? Philippi, you read about that, about Paul dealing there. Apollonia, okay? You see? So this is where these people went. So when they fled, let me go back to that really quick, right? So it says, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her, right? So when it says that, right, where did they go? Where's my map? Where's my map? Right here. These are the places where they went into, right? All up in here, right? Which is today known as Asia Minor, or at the time was known as Asia Minor, but today is known as, Turkey. This is where they were, and these were all Greek strongholds, man. You see, these were all Greek strongholds. You see, that's where all our people was. You see. Tros. These are all places that you read of when you read about Paul in the book of Acts, man. Paphos, okay. See that? Okay. So these are the places where they went, right? So let's keep reading. It says her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols. Right? So check this out. Right? Right? So they started worshiping idols, right? So let's show you something. Carried away. Excuse me. Dumb idols. Okay. 1 Corinthians 12:2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Right? What does it say here? Many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. You see? Wouldn't you call somebody like that a heathen? I'm sure Judas Maccabeus would. Right? It says this: for the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. You see? So this is what was going on, right? So not only were people leaving, right, but even the people that stayed were consenting to this religion, man. Right? So let me go to 2 Maccabees. 2 Maccabees 4. Let's do it like that. 4. And I'll start at 7. Listen to this, right? But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest, promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents. Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen. You see? To do after the heathens did, right? So wouldn't you call them a heathen if they were acting like heathens? This was the Jews' problem at that time. I'm not dealing with them heathen. They ain't got no hair on their face. Their children ain't circumcised. They're not circumcised. You got to imagine that they wore Greek garb, right? Just like when you go to work, if you work in an office setting, what do you wear? A shirt, a tie, maybe a little blazer, some loafers, right? you wouldn't wear that around the brothers, right? So this is what was happening. The Jews was looking at them like they were heathens because they were acting like heathens. Matter of fact, where am I at here? Right here. Boom. Oh shit, I didn't realize I zoomed in that much. So check this out. Here's some images of the Greeks at this time, or the Israelites that were Hellenized, right? Look, butt naked. And even in their dress, they dress like the Greeks. You see? All these images here. So I read something, right? And I wanted to mention it here. I was reading this article. You got some hating ass Edomite was mad that somebody had said that these pictures, these images were to denote the different sexes. So in other words, women were painted white, but the men were painted dark. But this is clearly a Negro. Look at, you got the lips, the nose, and all of that. But to boot, these are men right here. So why aren't they painted dark? If that was true, if they use color to denote sex, why aren't these two men right here on the side of this Israelite man, right? Why aren't they painted dark? If that was the case, right? Look at two fighters, right? Is there another one? No, there isn't. Was I done reading? Because this might be. Yeah. There's more in there. But let me go back to this. I want to keep showing these pictures, right? Some women here, right? That's a man. Why isn't he painted dark? Like they said, right? He said in the I wish I should have kept it up, but he said in the article, oh, obviously these Afrocentric people didn't take any Greek art classes like I did. But what do you have to say about that? That's a man right there. That's a man. That's a man. And that's a man manhandling the other three. You see? Why aren't they painted dark? And to your point, right? Okay. Look at this. This is that time, man. When you're reading the Maccabees about the Israelite men turning to Greek customs, these paintings are of that time, right? Look at this. Look at these pictures, man. See? And I used to think, man, when I used to see these busts when I was a kid, that's a Jake, man. Look at this dude. That's a Jake, man. And if you've ever been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art or any museum where they have these types of busts, why is it always that the nose is gone? The fingers stay intact, the toes stay intact, but the nose is always gone. Why is that? You see? Look at that. That's a Jake, man. And you got to believe that a lot of these pictures are of the men that we read about in Maccabees. You know, even the wicked men, Jason and his brothers was Menelaus and Lysimaeus, right? Some of these pictures are of those men, man. You see? Look at all these pictures, man. Let me go scroll down, go a little faster, right? See? All these pictures, man. These are all Jake. Arrogant to that man. That's a man right there. You see? You see? Right? So going back, right? Where'd I leave off? Place of exercise and for training up of you. Okay, verse 10, it says, when the king had granted and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashion. You see that? So these were the Hellenists, the Israelites who were being turned into the Greekish fashion, right? It says, in the royal privileges granted of special favor by the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away, and putting down the governments which were according to the law, he brought up new customs against the law. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of Greek fashions, an increase of heathenish manners, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest. You see? Check this out. That the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. You see? Look, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. You see? So when you hear Paul say things like this, right? Ye were carried away unto these dumb idols, or let's go here. Let's go to Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, right? Start at the 11th verse. He says, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision, right? Then we read that they were having their children to become uncircumcised, called the circumcision the flesh made by hands, that at that time you were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without the Most High in the world. But now in Hamashiach Yahushua, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach. That's what that was about, man. Bringing in the people who had fallen off and started following other customs, man. That's what it's all about, right? So that's it. That's all I had. Hopefully that was edifying. Again, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS who rule well. Honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect. And with that, I say shalom.